Hello and welcome to UAT Time within the United Countries Special by First Ukraine. You can find us on the frequencies available on our website, firstua.com. I'm Sergey, Velichanskiy.
And I am Olivier. Vedrine. UAT Time is dedicated to bring Ukraine and Europe closer to each other by introducing the real Ukraine to the rest of the world.
Looks like that in 2016, Ukraine will have a free visa regime with European Union. An association agreement between Ukraine and EU is taking new shape in January as well. So what are the business perspectives for Ukraine?
Our guest today is Anna Derevyanko, Executive Director of European Business Association. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for stopping by. And please share a little bit, what is European Business Association these days?
These days, European Business Association is the biggest association for foreign business in Ukraine because we bring together around 1,000 member companies which employ overall around 2 million of working places. So it's pretty actually a big voice for the business community in Ukraine, which is trying to present its viewpoints on how the best to introduce European values and practices in Ukraine, what are the best way to improve business climate, and how the business climate should look like for making business comfortable in this country.
Well,
okay, then we can
yes, go.
Yeah, we can go. And what are you? Can you explain to us how you help for foreign entrepreneurs to come to Ukraine? What are your tools to help them? What you use?
Actually, we are working with those ones which are already set up in Ukraine because they experience certain knowledge of how to do business here. And since our main stakeholders is the government of Ukraine, if we are talking about lobbying, then obviously we need some knowledge and experience on what needs to be changed in Ukraine. So how it happens, then a foreign company or local company becomes a member of this community. It has the opportunity to raise all those problematic issues it has in doing business on everyday basis. And basically with those issues we are working, we are consolidating them either into position papers or letters or proposals to the government, and we are making that on industrial principle because within the EBA we have 23 committees which are working on daily basis. And basically all this experience goes to the government. And beyond that, I should say that in case something sensitive happens to the company, not of collective nature, but maybe sometimes company experiences troubles with, I don't know, state fiscal service or customs authorities or some inspections, it has the opportunity to apply to the EBA for help. And then we try to be like a mediator between the business and also governmental authorities to help businesses to survive in the country and develop further.
And what you have two types of members. Can you explain to us? Because you have European members and non-European members.
Yeah, we have full companies, full members and associate members. And the difference is that full companies, they are coming from European Union or they are owned by the citizens of the EU or EFTA. And the rest goes to the associate membership lists. And the difference is not that huge because actually between two types of memberships, because associate members do not have the opportunity to elect and be elected to the board of the EBA, which means that only European companies, European-owned companies have the opportunity to leverage and to impact the strategy of the European Business Association. But having said so, I should say that we welcome and we really value each member of each member company because they all have and they all possess the intellectual knowledge which is needed for the current stage of development in Ukraine.
Does mean you like to mix Ukrainian company and European company to share the knowledge? Yeah.
Actually, it was not our initial idea, but it happens by means of nature because they come all together and they really talk to each other. They try to work with each other and they are all interested in each other. That is why the culture is being transmitted from one to another.
Actually,
so
that was the question that I had as far as can any business become a member?
Absolutely, but the business
size
can...
or what should be the
size doesn't really matter, because within the EBA we have different size companies, so presumably altogether we represent big, small and medium-sized companies, but nevertheless it's very important to become a member only if you adhere to certain standards and rules, because European values are important for us, and basically we don't pay bribes as an organization in order to change the regulation in the country. We are working in a transparent manner with the government of Ukraine. We are working with each other in transparent manner, and these are the principles which should be supported by the companies which are part of the European Business Association. And if that's not supported, then obviously we do not accept those companies to the EBA.
In your website, you present the lobbying policy of the EBA, and also you present some politician and member of the government of Ukraine on your website. How you see the lobbying policy in Ukraine? Because it's very difficult to explain what is lobbying in Ukraine.
It equals advocacy or representing interests of member companies, but for us, the key thing which we bring to the government of Ukraine is the value which we all together can create for this country. And when we talk to the member companies and when they complain about certain aspects for doing business, we are trying to come to the joint solution with regards to what needs to be done in order to feel better. And they actually base this knowledge on the European standards and principles. We scrutinize all together what are the best practices in the world in order to be implemented in Ukraine. And we never take those positions and never bring them to the government when we may think that it may have a risk of devastating the situation in Ukraine, or it can impact negatively to the business community, the rest of the business community which is represented in Ukraine. So we are trying to make everything possible in order to unite the community, in order to offer something from which Ukraine will finally and eventually benefit, and business as well.
Now, on December 14, you had a very interesting meeting. Actually, it's very timing. Well, it's basically that's pretty much all we hear on the news right now. The debates as far as the new tax code. You had a meeting with Natalia Yaresko. As far as I understand, she's a member, right? She was a member
through Western Diaspora and Horizon Capital. But now she's a minister, of course, and she's not a member. She's now on the second part.
But it was good. They took the step to meet with they met with the members of European Business Association to discuss the compromise draft of the tax reform. Basically, as far as we understand, there are two drafts, pretty much. One is supported by International Monetary Fund, but it doesn't bring a lot of reforms and changes. And another one is quite revolutionary. So what do you know about this? What do you think?
Actually, I should say that the aims of those drafts are both actually pretty much the same, because both drafts, they would like to introduce justice in paying taxes by different taxpayers in the country. The methods with which they are going to tackle all those things are a little bit different. And I would say that parliamentary draft is more brave in terms of reduction of rates, which are now actually evident in the country. But the point is that basically Ministry of Finance is actually the final responsible body in terms of elaborating financial policy in the country, and they are the ones which should produce zero deficit, or actually certain deficit which is supported by the IMF, and they are responsible for that in order not to allow instability in Ukrainian financial sector. So that is why they are more accurate and they are more modest in terms of reduction of the rates. But the point is, let's ask ourselves, what do we expect from the tax reform as business community. I represent business which is paying taxes to the state budget. I represent the business which is actually has no problem with actually these rates which are even currently available. And we were not asking for substantial reduction of rates until we see substantial drop in public expenditures. So basically the other side of the budget. But what we really wanted to see is actually improved administration of taxes, because nowadays it's very difficult to actually to pay taxes. It's cumbersome procedures. Sometimes the law is being not implemented properly, and basically this is something which really puts in trouble many, both European companies, international investors, and local firms which are adhering to the local legislation. And basically both drafts, they offer certain recipes in that. Parliamentary draft, beyond that, beyond reduction of rates, beyond actually offering certain changes to the administration, they even offering a certain change of the rule of the game. So they are basically introducing some things from Estonian model in terms of taxation of the corporate profit tax, which is not supported by the Ministry of Finance and International Monetary Fund. And basically we were not the one who was asking, frankly, to change taxation of corporate taxation system. But what was really needed, and it was actually reflected in both drafts, is reduction of the salary taxes. And basically in both drafts, they are more or less similar. And when the Ministry of Finance, they are offering a gradual reduction of taxes, they are offering actually to lower down them twice, and they are offering actually to keep individual profit tax in the amount of 15% and social tax in the amount of 20%. And then as of 2018, they would like to combine both and to have them at the level of 20% totally. And the parliamentary draft offers, it seems to me, 20% from 2016. But the point is that they would like to reduce, they would like to remove the maximum amount from which those taxes are being taken, which means for current taxpayers who are paying taxes to the state budget from salaries, and they pay actually unshared those salaries to people, it means increase of the pressure to them. So basically some compromise should be found. But it seems to me nowadays we are in the situation and on the stage of development when it's actually very difficult to approve those changes, be it parliamentary changes or governmental changes being accepted by the parliament as of 1st of January 2016. Because according to the Ukrainian legislation, such kind of changes to the taxation of Ukraine should apply or should be introduced no later than half a year before the next budget year starts. So basically now we are late in terms of those changes. And what we can do is actually to elaborate those changes and approve them in the first part of 2016, actually approve them by the end of this first semi-annual, so maybe first half year, and then make them visible to the business for actually adaptation to them and make them actually implemented as of 1st of January 2017.
So it seems to me that really, yes, there are different opinions on a lot of things, but I think either budget is accepted. The major problem right now, which needs to be fought, is the corruption, regardless of the budget.
Absolutely.
And what do you think about this fight against corruption? Something is changing, or we are still in the same level?
You know, it's really a difficult thing actually to fight on, but obviously they cannot produce within the first 2 years of their governance certain results. But society expects that, and we would like to see people who are corrupt. We would like them to see in jail.
Exactly.
We'd like them to be punished in the lawful way. Otherwise, justice would not be introduced. But the point is that currently, if you ask the business community, we don't see substantial visible changes in this thing. Of course, there are certain institutions which have been introduced or established. Anti-Corruption Bureau, Anti-Corruption Agency. So basically those organizations which are needed like instruments for fighting corruption, they are there. But frankly speaking, we don't yet feel enough political will from the top to make this fight be effective and really visible.
Then this is a problem of will.
As always.
That's true.
Always.
That's now. But does this make a bad look of us, of Ukraine, in the eyes of foreign investors?
You're absolutely right. Of course, it does not make us better, obviously. And
I'm asking such a profound questions, but seriously, you deal with those guys, the big corporations, the companies that really can provide some good job offers to our local people. And I mean, in all kinds of sectors, you know. And I sometimes think, for them, before moving into the country, yes, they come to some conferences, they come to some forums, they meet with people, they get ignited with some of the ideas of potential investments and business and work fields and all those areas, and then suddenly once they start arranging or ordering one first piece of paper, when they register their company's charter, that's when it all starts.
Yeah, I agree, but at the same time, I would not be that depressive because actually, frankly speaking...
That's why we invited you to help us to be less depressive.
Yeah, because I think that unless company does not agree with those principles, it's possible to overcome them. And because quite often we hear that yes, it's corrupt, yes, it's a difficult business environment, but nevertheless, Ukraine is a young country, and that is why it needs to change for a certain period of time. It takes efforts and years in order to change, but it also should start somewhere, because corruption is a two-way street, and quite often when the government is corrupt, actually somebody gives them money. And basically what we are talking about within the organization is that businesses should not be corrupt and should not accept actually those corrupt practices, which even sometimes they are either recommended or pushed for. And it's possible to be successful without being corrupt in Ukraine. And actually confirmation from that, even for that, is actually our member companies which are operating on the market, and they are making good margins on the market even during crisis time. And of course it's not that rosy, it's not that actually excellent as it used to be several years ago in terms of returns of investments, even though during those corrupt times. But nevertheless, nowadays we see that if the company voices something and voices concerns, basically we see real results with our support, but we actually look at our experience. It's possible to resolve the issues with the governmental officials and governmental bodies. And it actually gives results, positive results. Companies sometimes do not believe that this is possible, but it is actually possible. Because sometimes even communication is important. Because sometimes some problems occur because of poor communication, or maybe somebody is not doing a good job on the regional level. But if you communicate it further to the higher level, actually, in case you have reputation, like in our case, the organization has reputation, obviously the governmental actors, they make a change, and they actually change the situation for better of the company if the company has lawful interests which have been in trouble.
And in this way, we talked just before this recording about communication, and really in Ukraine, in large scale, you have a problem of communication, management, and human resources and all that. But anyway, in those reforms, what are you expecting from the EU or from US or from IMF or from the World Bank? What are you expecting from them?
I think what is important to have from them is actually pressure to make those reforms be done, because they can't actually implement those reforms instead of the local government, instead of Ukrainian government, because unless Ukrainian government will want to make those changes, then actually all the international support and pressure will not be effective. So basically government should really start doing what it wants, I mean actually in terms of reformation of the country. And actually foreign stakeholders and foreign institutions should help in terms of advice, in terms of sometimes financial support when it's possible, sometimes best practices, I don't know, some expertise, etc., etc., and even public support on the global arena, because Ukraine is in difficult situation right away, and it's unusual for the country which has been in peace for so many years, and we were not actually planning such kind of actions which we are experiencing now in the east of the country, and this kind of support, I mean, from the global stakeholders, which could help us to restore stability, security of Ukraine, and basically protecting sovereign interests of the country. This is important because basically we are the ones who were relying on certain agreements which have been achieved in Budapest. So basically we are relying on the help from the United Kingdom and also United States of America in order to restore our actually security.
Yes.
But at the same time, it does not, it should not discount our own efforts in terms of making our home in order. And frankly speaking, I do believe, and business community believes, that even for foreign stakeholders, it could be a much easier job to protect us or to help us in case actually they would see and we would see more visible results in terms of fight with corruption, in terms of introducing the rule of the law in the country, because in judiciary system we don't see substantial change for better.
Exactly.
In case we would really see some focus on certain reforms which are needed, and I should say that I would think that actually the first reform which should be done, which could actually somehow add up to the fight with corruption, is the quality of state administration, the quality of state governance. Because nowadays salaries of state-owned and of people working for state institutions are really peanuts, and basically they are working for less than 200
But
euros per
thankfully,
month.
civil administration law has been adopted, so
Yeah, it is.
hopefully that's a good step.
Yep.
It's a good step forward, but nevertheless, this law does not allow for actual definition of salaries for people, actually. But this is important to have actually enough and normal salaries for people. But it's a first brick, first step forward, which should be actually.
I have another question.
Welcome.
Because I travel all over Ukraine, and I know that your economy is, what can I say, 30%, that was 30% for Russia, 30% for EU, and 30% for national interest. Okay. And now, because of the Russian sanction against Russia, what is the impact in the economy of Ukraine, and how you will change this impact and go to the EU market? Because when I was, for example, in Dnipropetrovsk, I talked with the president of the council of the Oblast of Dnipropetrovsk, and he said to me, Olivier, we have to go more and more to the EU because we are losing our 30% of economy with Russia because of the Russian sanction and because of the war in the east and the annexion of Crimea. What is your analysis about that?
I can tell you that a majority of business people, they already readdressed their logistical channels and their commercial activity from Russia to other markets. If they have not yet done it, they're thinking about that, because not only about sanctions their choice is made, because sometimes they feel that Russia is not it's not very safe to make business with Russia. Let's be frank. And that is why when the situation of unpredictability and instability, better to have more actually of such nature and stability and predictability in other markets. So that is why they started even to rethink their channels even before the situation in the east started and before actually Crimea took place, Crimean annexation took place, and slowly, but nevertheless, companies found new markets, and this free trade area, which is already operating between European Union and Ukraine, it gives and new opportunities for Ukrainian players, for Ukrainian businessmen, and not only to them, but actually for foreign companies which are operating in Ukraine. And basically the full pledge, actually, introduction of this FTA and association agreement as of 1st of January next year, gives even more opportunities for change within the country and more opportunities for new markets for Ukrainian players. But nevertheless, again, the homework should be done within Ukraine. Basically, businesses which are are thinking to export to the EU, they should be more active, and they should also check whether their standards of products in quality, they reflect actually the needs of European population. So it's actually the competition which will be available and which is available will have to boost their production sites to the new level of development. And in case they won't be competitive, basically this kind of agreement will not bring so much of positive change to the local business community. So basically the global stakeholders offer us certain support. They are also interested obviously in Ukrainian market, but nevertheless actually Ukrainians should make use of these new opportunities. They don't only export to the EU, they export to the Asian markets, they're looking for markets in China, in Latin America, in Africa, etc. So basically what we see now is certain support from the governmental officials, from the Ministry of Economy, from our trade representative, in order to promote these export markets. So I think that it gives opportunities, but we should be actually also grasping in terms of taking them.
Time is up.
Time is up.
But what I want you to consider, Anna, please, next year, probably somewhere maybe in February, once we will have had over a month of this new association agreement functioning, that we would talk specifically about Ukrainian business doors to the European Union, and what could be the steps and what could be the help from Europe, and at the same time what is the homework and what you guys do as far as, because I'm sure there should be some educational events and some other things like this, and we as UAT time would be more than happy to participate in.
And also we have to underline that we always talk about the help of EU to Ukraine. We can also talk about the help of Ukraine to EU.
Absolutely, because actually nowadays it looks like that Ukraine can really offer very good and competitive labor,
and
which can EU
we'll have to talk about that.
We'll talk the whole time.
Okay.
So yes, thank you very much for being with us. It was a very, very, very
Merci beaucoup.
good
Merci beaucoup.
time, yes. It was United Country, UAT time by First Ukraine. Our guest was Anna Derevyanko, Executive Director of European Business Association.
Olivier Vedrine and Sergey Velichanskiy were working for you in the studio. Stay with us and we'll show to you the real Ukraine.
Thank you for being with us and have a good day and see you soon. See you.